One of the things that really sets us back during this whole time of pandemic and inflation and all the things going on is uncertainty, doubt, unease, anxiety, on and on. So today on the program, I have an expert that deals with these areas, Amy Wong. Check out on how to grow confident.
Welcome to Advance with Mike Acker, the podcast designed to help entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals alike break through barriers by improving their practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Your host is a best-selling author, executive coach, and founder of the Advance Public Speaking School and Advantage Publishing Group, two companies dedicated to providing an edge for leaders. Find out more about Mike at mikeacker.com. Now here's your host, Mike Acker.
Hey, welcome to the program. I'm glad you're here, Amy.
Thanks. I am just delighted to be here with you today.
Well, we want to talk about imposter syndrome today. This is something I've talked about in the past, but it's been over a year. So instead of people thumbing through and getting a good perspective, first of all, let's just dive into how prevalent is imposter syndrome, and then we'll talk about who you are and how to defeat it. But let's just dive into that right now. How prevalent is imposter syndrome in America?
Oh, it is way more prevalent than people care to admit. And it's something that, I'm just like you, Mike. I work with a lot of leaders, a lot of teams, and, at some point in the journey, depending on the context, each and every one of us, we get hit with a feeling of, oh my gosh, do I actually know what I'm doing? Oh my gosh, do I belong here? Oh my gosh, look around me. They seem amazing. Do I measure up? I don't think I do. What if they find out that I really don't know what I'm talking about? Do I know what I'm talking about? It is so prevalent. And I think there's a lot of shame that is wrapped around that. People don't want to acknowledge it. And so, we hear about it and we think, oh, that's something that happens to other people, when in fact, it happens to each and every one of us. And for anyone, and I'll just say this, for anyone that has had some bit of impact in the world, has created something, has taken a risk, they have experienced imposter syndrome. I'm sorry. There's no way that somebody can put themselves out there and create something and not have that hit of, oh my gosh, wait, do I actually know what I'm doing? Do I belong? Am I okay? Yeah.
I love that Matthew McConaughey talks about this. I'm just going through his book, Green Lights, right now. He actually talks about when he hit that fame model, that fame mode, that he started thinking about this as well. So we're going to dive in. We're going to solve everybody's problem in imposter syndrome today with Amy Wong. Well, we're going to point you the right direction. We're going to cover some other areas as well, all to help you advance. But before we dive into some more subject and some real good nuggets for people, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, so people know who they're learning from.
Yeah. So my name is Amy Wong, and I am a leadership coach, and I focus on all things growth, transformation, and flow. And so when I work with leaders, it's either individually or in teams. And, the entry point and the angle in which we address all things leadership and growth is really through the medium of communication. And I find, and I know you do too, because this is your work as well, this medium called communication is so fascinating because this is where everything happens. And we usually don't think about it that way. We show up and we hope for the best and then wonder why things don't come together in the ways that we had intended. But really, it's this medium of conversations and communications that's so rich with information and potential. And so that's really where my area of expertise and passion is in this medium, to get to the deeper level of transformation and growth, because communication really is just a symptom of the relationship we have with ourselves. And so that's kind of what I do in the world today. I've been doing this for over 10 years. I founded Always on Purpose in 2011, which gosh, just seems like yesterday. And it also seems like forever ago, Right. But prior to that, I was in tech and I was at Sun Microsystems for 10 years, which that also seems wild. So it's been an incredible journey, and here I am at this point, and I have to say, I really genuinely feel like I get to live a miracle every single day doing the
That's
work that I do.
incredible. Well, and it's so incredible, and to be able to help people. And I know a lot of people listening, whether you're driving your car, or you're listening to podcasts, or you're watching on the YouTube, you probably can relate to that sense of having accomplished something, having done something, wondering whether you fit. Maybe you feel like you got hired beyond your actual ability or your stage or whatever it might be. So that brings uncertainty in. And of course, we live in a pandemic season, and we live in all kinds of different things. So there's a lots of reasons for uncertainty. And I know that this is an area that you really focus in on. So how can people here listening find ease, find some kind of peace in the midst of all the uncertainty?
Oh, so much. And wouldn't you agree, Mike? There's so much uncertainty right now. I mean, right now in this day and age, as we've been in this pandemic for 2+ years, and there's just so much change, and there's just so much happening in the world. And I feel like we're bombarded with so much information. It's really hard to I find personally, it can feel hard to feel grounded. And so this topic of how to thrive amidst the uncertainty really is so important to focus on. So I'm really glad you bring this up. Something I help my clients see, and I have to practice myself, is that all of the anxiety that we feel, because that's really what we're battling. It's not so much the uncertainty, it's the anxiety that comes with uncertainty. It's the anxiety that comes with not knowing, the lack of predictability. And our brains don't like that. And so, it's not uncertainty on its own. It's the feeling we have as a result of the uncertainty. And that's really what we're trying to manage and get a hold of. Because if we want to thrive amidst all of this change, it's really, okay, well, how do I be with how I'm feeling about what is? And so this anxiety. So now you have to say, okay, well, what's anxiety? Well, anxiety really lives in our thoughts about the future state. Anxiety doesn't happen. It's not right here, right now, in this now moment. It is born out of our constant rehearsal of the future, or the constant ruminations about the past. But it's but in the now, very right now, here, right now moment, that is a beautiful, manageable moment. Everything is wonderful now. But we forget that because we're so intent on being 3 steps ahead, or so intent on replaying what just happened to figure out in order to, and so it's really easy to not be present. And so the short answer is, if we really want to thrive in the midst of change and uncertainty and turmoil, it's recognizing that all that's real is right now. And when we embody and we really take that wisdom on and decide, and I'm going to really acknowledge and honor that. Yeah. Okay. All that's real is right now. When we drop into the now moment, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, that tree, that's really a beautiful, gosh, the green on those leaves are beautiful. And my dog is so sweet over here. We recognize things that we just pass over and glaze over otherwise, because we're so focused on things that aren't real. Yeah. And so to really get through the craziness, it's really having a practice in becoming present.
So interesting, because you applied that really on in an every single situation scenario where you're looking forward. I've applied something similar to just public speaking. A lot of times people are looking forward to this public speaking in the sense of looking towards it, anticipating it with anxiety because it's out there.
Yeah.
And then once they get done with it, they're looking back at it with regret.
Yes.
So they're not living in the present once they get past it, and they're not looking at the present before they're coming up to it. And a huge aspect is really that learning to, whether it's public speaking or job or stress or whatever it might be, learning to live in the present. What kind of things do you teach people to do, or what kind of things, and I know you have a book as well, and what kind of things do you help people do, or how to live so that they're living in the present?
Oh, gosh, there's so many little tips and tricks. I love mantras. It's like statements that just pull me back that feel true. And I'll share here with you my personal favorite. And I use this one all the time and I share it with anyone who's interested, but it simply is this statement: all that's real is right now. All that's real is right now. Right. Right. And so just that hit of truth, to remember to tell myself this when I can start feeling the, oh gosh, but then I got this and I got to, well, what did I got to do? Wait, hold on. Whoa. All that's real. Right. All that's real is right. All that's real is right now. And this is what I got in front of me. Okay. Right. I can manage this. I can deal with right now. So just dropping into what's true with a statement like that. And I encourage people to come up with something that feels true for you. That's what feels true for me. You could say, all that's real is what's in front of me, or, just some bit of wisdom that you derive for yourself can be really helpful. Another is, I'm just going to say this, and if this isn't obvious, but a meditation practice is powerful. Now, do you meditate, Mike?
Yeah, I have a prayer routine in the morning.
Beautiful. And don't you feel like that practice really helps you stay present through your days?
Yeah. And for years, I was actually in ministry. So I got to see what this looked like. And one of the ways that Christian meditation can be different from some is that it's about actually filling your mind with something that you feel is inspired by God. So you're filling your mind. So you're meditating on a psalm. So instead of thinking on everything that's negative and down and all the stuff that's in the news, you're filling your mind with something that's good and holy and right, and you're dwelling on it and you're not letting it out of your mind. One of the great principles of King David, probably one of the most well-known people in the Bible, is that he would be meditating, thinking on the things of God all throughout the day. So that would help him elevate his life. Of course, he was extremely successful.
Oh God, that's beautiful. And I love about this, and it's what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling in the similarity is it's recognizing that we have the ability to choose our focus. Yeah. We get to pick what we focus on. And that really, if we want to be present, which is going to, eliminate the anxiety about the future state so that we can manage uncertainty. If we want to be present, it's learning to harness our focus. And that's why I mentioned meditation, because meditation is a practice to strengthen that ability to harness that focus, and, to choose where we put the spotlight. And I love how you just put this. It's, instead of filling your mind with the negativity, we choose to fill our mind with something inspiring about God or whatever else it is that we choose. And that's really the key word here, is choosing. Yeah. And, a lot of us focus by default. It's just whatever's in front of us, we're going to focus on that. Yep. And I use an analogy often where, if we, let's say it's the end of the day, you're tired and you just want to sit back, watch TV and just zone out. Right. So do you remember back in the day when we had cable before streaming services, you turn on the TV and then up would pop whatever was on the last channel? Do you remember that back then?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm a child in the 80s. So.
Yeah. So, that's how it used to be. But you turn on the TV and let's say up pops a film, a horror film, here you're wanting to relax. This horror film pops up. You're like, I don't want to watch that. So what do? You change the channel because you're like, it makes me feel horrible. So you change the channel. Well, yeah, we do that with the TV, but we don't do that with our minds. And that to capture that choice point and harness that choice to choose to shift your focus, whether it's on something inspiring or whether it's just this now moment where I recognize, wow, I actually have feet in shoes. Wow. I totally forgot about that. I can feel my feet right now. Or, oh, wow, I can just hear the sounds in the room. Like just being present to what is right now. It's a shift in focus. And so to strengthen that ability to shift, a meditation practice is really, 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 really powerful. Yeah. And then just to answer that last question, what else can we do? Every so often, I've always recommended to people, grab your phone and set a couple of random timers to go off throughout the day. And when the timer goes off, that is a cue for you to literally stop and drop thought and focus in on just one sense right now. So whether that's the sounds, the ambient sounds in the room, or whether it's your feet in your shoes or your butt in the seat, but to be with it for about 10 seconds, it's really a game changer. And when you start to do that regularly, it becomes more of a baseline where you remember to be present throughout the day.
That's fantastic. This is great. Let's make a little shift here, because we're talking about this personal aspect, the personal leadership, and all leadership starts with personal leadership. But let's switch it over into the workplace. So right now, there's a lot of shifting, there's a lot of changing. Some people didn't find meaning in a job, so they moved to a different job, and they're still not finding meaning. Other people, they're reluctant because they got really nice gold or silver handcuffs at work, and they're really reluctant to leave. But regardless of whether they love it, they're starting their own. The grass is greener. Oh, actually, it wasn't. How can people find more meaning? I know you talk a lot about purpose. So how can people find more meaning, more purpose on the job?
Yeah. To really address this, it's helpful to start by saying, that everything that we want as humans, everything that each and every one of us want, everything we think we want it. It's not for the thing. We want it because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way, right? So we think, oh, I want this job. I want a promotion. I want more money. I want a relationship. I want to buy a home. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to retire. We have these ideas in our head of what it is that we want, what it is that we're motivated by. And really the truth is, at the end of all of what we think we want is a desired feeling state. And, just through the process of living and developing, we lose touch with that reality. We lose touch with that truth. And we get so caught up on the things, the stuff, like, let me follow the formula. I said I was supposed to do this to get this and then I'm going to be happy. And that's kind of that's the conditioned thinking that a lot of us get stuck in. And so when it comes to finding meaning in our work, one of the first and most important questions you can ask is not, what should I be doing? What can I do? What do I want to do? A really powerful question is, what do I want to feel? And that right there can be so illuminating, because we've been trained to ask, what do I want to do? Well, what's the job function? What are the skills? What are the challenges? What's the role? What's the do? And but really, where our fulfillment and our joy arises is when we realize that desired feeling state. But that's only going to happen when you can wake up to what that might be. So first asking the question, what do I want to feel? All of a sudden it's like, oh, wow. I want more peace of mind. I want more stimulation. I want more connection. I want to feel, well, you fill in the blank, but the moment you ask that question, all of a sudden the world shifts a little bit, because now your lens is a little different. Now looking through at your life through this lens of, okay, well, now here's what I want to feel. Naturally, you're going to start to see, oh, well, then focusing over here makes more sense, and not focusing on these things makes more sense. And if you make it a point to live into that feeling state, instead of, when you wake up in the morning, say, you know what, it is my absolute intent today that I am going to feel connected, that I'm going to feel impactful. And you keep that in the forefront, all of a sudden you see opportunities where you hadn't before. And it's not that they weren't there, you just couldn't see them without that lens. But now with the lens, possibilities emerge, which give you the ability to take different actions. And the next thing you know it, you're feeling a lot different. And then when that happens, meaning, purpose, joy, fulfillment, it all kind of works together.
In some ways, it's kind of like taking a very tangible, smart goal of, here's what I want to do. I want to make X amount of money. Okay, what do I need to do that to get there? I need to do this, this, and this. But instead of saying, I want to make X amount of money, I want to feel this way. What do I need to get there? And then almost backtrack from that.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So one of the things that I'm it's been interesting going through, I went Will Smith's book, and then I went through Matthew McConaughey's book. And it's very interesting because I was following Will Smith. I mean, these guys are about 10 years older than me, right? So I was following him throughout his career. I remember those moments. I remember Fresh Prince. I remember that. And it seemed like his life was perfect. And then going through and listening to him and talking about some of the stuff going on during that time, it was not the case. And he was feeling down and he was feeling lost, and he ended up moving back in. He lost a house, he lost a marriage, he lost this, and he felt defeated. Yet I didn't know that. I mean, he didn't share that with me. I mean, we're friends, but he didn't share that with me. No, I mean, sometimes we feel like we're watching somebody, their life looks so great on paper, but later on in their biography, in these guys' case, or later on one-to-one, or later on in the news, we found out they felt so hollow. So speak to that person who's feeling that way. They feel without meaning. They feel without purpose. They feel hollow, even though maybe their Instagram feed or their resume or their friends think their life is great.
Oh, gosh, there's so much in what you're saying here. And, I really like to focus on this idea that, all of us, whether we like it or not, we're growth oriented. We're all in a path where we're growing, whether we like it or not. And we tend to think that growth really is supposed to be linear and that it happens in the light, right? In the light. But growth for us, each and every one of us, happens both in light and dark. And we want to talk about the stuff that happens in the light, but we generally don't want to talk about the stuff that happens in the dark. And it's usually because it's wrapped in shame or embarrassment, because these are my failures, and these were the hardships, and these were where things went wrong, and this wasn't what I was intending, and I didn't plan for that. But we grow, where we learn our values, we learn our strengths, we learn our skills just as much in the dark as we do in the light. And so, part of really choosing to live on purpose is recognizing that we are going to grow both in the light and the dark. And instead of just really focusing in on the stuff that we intended, it's honoring the stuff that we didn't intend. So I call it growth on purpose and growth by accident, right? All the stuff that went wrong, we actually grew there. So the first step I'd say is welcome all of it, because just because it was not ideal, just because it wasn't planned, just because it was a tragedy, because it was a failure, doesn't mean it was unwanted. And that's really the big aha here, is the stuff that happens, it happens. But if we can change our relationship to the stuff that happens and honor it for the fertilizer it is, not the crap that we think it is, but the fertilizer that it is. I actually write about this in my book. It's the title is Manure Makes Beautiful Blossoms, right? So it's, instead of crap, it's actually manure, if we choose to see it that way. And so really embracing all of it as fertilizer is a huge step in moving in the direction of more fulfillment, right?
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I love that analogy. It's a nice gross and nice beautiful analogy, but gross can turn out to be something beautiful. I used to live in the farmland area, so when the manure hit, for those who don't live in the farmland area, when the manure hits, it doesn't smell pretty, but it sure produces incredible. I lived in a land of tulips, and so the tulips would come out after some nice smelling months, and then people travel from around the world to see the tulips.
Yeah. I actually saw those. I went and visited the tulips up in that Washington area. It is
Mount Vernon, Skagit Valley tulip.
Tremendous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely tremendous. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
We lived on the road where people would go to tulips. And so it would be just packed out. And people would stop and they'd be like, "Can we use your bathroom?" Because the traffic jams would be so long. Yeah. I don't know you. Pay me $20.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so let's talk about that's on the negative side about things. Yeah. But let's talk about how people can feel bold. How can people feel fearless? My first book was called Speak with No Fear. So I know there's a lot of people feeling fearful, but they want to be fearless. I always talk about there's two aspects: take off anxiety, put on confidence. So how can people put on more boldness? How can people put on more fearlessness, whether
Yeah.
that's their personal life, whether that's their financial life, their entrepreneurship, their leadership, or whatever else it might be.
Yeah. I love this question because this comes up a lot. Everybody wants to be more fearless. Everybody wants to be bold and claim the life they know they were meant to live. And the question is, well, how do I do that? Well, the way I see it, in each and every moment, like right now, 5 minutes from now, in each moment for each and every one of us, we are always standing for something, but we're usually not aware of what we're standing for. And so the way I talk about this is, in every moment, each and every one of us has a primary objective live in that moment. And we're usually not aware. So right now, for example, Mike, you and I were having this conversation. And if I didn't know what I know, I could ultimately, right now in this conversation, I could ultimately be standing for impressing you. Or I could ultimately be standing for doing a really good job. Or I could ultimately be standing for getting it right.
Mhm.
Or I could ultimately be standing for connection and empowerment here, because that's what this is about. But it's a choice. And due to our neurobiology, and I mean, this is a big conversation, so I'll just say, due to our psychology and our neurobiology, oftentimes our primary underlying objective is going to shift to something that totally doesn't always serve us. So I talk about this a lot because I do a lot of public speaking coaching, just like you, a lot of communication coaching. And I say that nervousness really is a symptom of an unintentional stance in that moment. And in that moment, it's, if you're nervous, that's simply a sign that in this moment, you're standing for looking good.
Yeah.
You're standing for proving yourself. You're standing for you. You are not standing for the objective. Okay.
Yeah.
So at every moment, there's a primary underlying objective. And if we are not feeling great, if we're not feeling bold and present and clear and empowered, then that's simply a sign that the stance that we're holding is serving us. And it's not that we chose it. It just happened because it just does. And so if we're in a moment where we're feeling fear, or there's a moment where we could be more bold and it's hard, then I will guarantee you that in that moment, it's simply due to having that primary objective, that stance is shifted to playing it safe, being liked, being right, avoiding conflict, looking good. And here's the thing, no one would actively choose that as their primary objective if given the choice. And so this is where I say have a lot of compassion in this process, because it just happens, again, due to how our focus and our attention shifts. But recognize when it does happen by how you feel. Because if you're not feeling great, then it's just a sign. So then if you catch like, oh, wait, I'm feeling a little, no, you know what? I want to be more bold. Then that's when you have to really claim, okay, you know what? Then this is what it's about. And it can't be about you. This is about an opportunity. This is about their growth. This is about our business's expansion. This is about making the world a better place. This is about seizing opportunity. I don't know. You decide, because it's all dependent on the context. But the moment you claim that stance that has nothing to do with you, boom, all of your internal resources get channeled into that singular focus. And this is where eloquence comes in, the innovation and creativity and imagination. All these resources that were just spinning around, oh my gosh, what do they think? Oh my gosh, that usually go along with an unintentional stance. Now they are rechanneled in a really productive way. And then all that's left is fearlessness and a life lived in a really bold, powerful way.
It's so interesting to see the parallels, right? Of course, we're both in some similar spaces. We apply it in different settings, of course, but the parallels, the second book I wrote, which is not up here, it's not a hard book cover, is called Right to Speak. And I say, when you're writing a speech, the first thing you need to do is answer the question, why? Why are you getting up there in front of it? Which is the stance.
Yeah.
What are you doing this for?
That's right.
Are you there to get noticed? Are you there to look good? Are you there to impress? Or are you there? And the ultimate underlying thing that I help people with is finding, how does this that you're talking to help people?
That's right.
If it doesn't help people, if there's no way that it connects and makes the life better of the person that you're working for, or working with, or working ultimately to serve, then you probably should be insecure. But if you have a reason for it, if you know, and I would say like this, like if I was to go on a red carpet event and the whole thing was to impress the paparazzi, then I might feel a little bit nervous because I have to impress. My stance is to impress them.
Yep.
But if I'm going to go serve the disenfranchised in the outskirts of Mazatlan, Mexico, I don't care if I smell good or bad. I don't care how I look. How am I serving? How am I able to help? My stance is to help. My stance is to serve.
That's right. And you know what? We will always be fearless when it's never about ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a choice. And it's a choice. And we have to shift that focus. So harnessing that choice point to shift the focus, that's where the work is. But it first starts with waking up to this exact reality. Yes.
So much of this comes back down to the relationships that we're building. And of course, that's something that you talk so much about, not just communication on stage, but in relationships. So talk to us about creating more trust. We talked about some work areas here, but the person's driving right now, they're slowing down, they're thinking about this kind of stuff. They're looking at YouTube, they're watching it, thinking about it, maybe jotting some stuff down. But how could they build more trust? How could they build more connection at home in their personal off stage?
Well, gosh, oh my gosh, how much time do we have, Mike? I mean, this is one of my favorite topics, and there's so much to say about this.
Yeah, 20 seconds. No.
Well, I think it's first important to really talk about what trust really is. And, there's a lot of, it's so, I always ask this question in workshops, like, how would you define trust? And everybody has all these different definitions for trust. And what's interesting is that they're all right, and yet they're all very different. And so to get on the same page about this and have this conversation with you, it's important to note that trust isn't an emotion just because we like each other. Trust is a neurological state in which we are optimized for our greatest thinking. We are optimized for imagination and creativity and risk-taking and taking disparate ideas, bringing them together, innovation. It is thriving. The state of trust is truly thriving for the brain, as opposed to distrust, lack of safety, which is surviving for the brain. So really what we're talking about here is the difference between thriving and surviving. And so trust isn't just this, hey, this feels better. I like trust. I want this in my relationships. This is actually life to the brain, because the opposite is not. And so, it's the bigger story here, which I find so fascinating, is that, our brains, are hardwired to keep us alive, from birth until death. But what I find so interesting is that to our brain, environmental threats, like say tiger jumping out of a bush, and social threats, like say boss throwing you under the bus in a meeting, to the brain, those threats are the same. The brain is looking out for safety all the time. And what it treats as, this is going to sound dramatic, what it treats as death is rejection. Rejection literally is death to the brain. And so it's not uncommon to hear that, we're social beings, we're hardwired for connection. We need to be in connection. We're tribal. We need to be, but we don't, it's like, well, what does that actually mean? Well, to the brain, rejection is literally registers as physical pain. So we're doing everything we can to avoid judgment, rejection, humiliation, all of that stuff. And so trust is the antithesis of that. Trust is the antidote. That trust is, okay, so if rejection is death, then what is life? Well, it's trust. And so that feeling of safety with one another is so important. And, if we want to create more trust with others, if we want that sense of thriving with one another, it can be really, really powerful to see that every single person's brain that you interact with is craving that sense of connection with others. And the brain is constantly toggling through these non-cognitive questions in order to gauge for safety. And, the three questions that it asks, if we were to put words to the ways in which it checks to make sure that there's safety, those questions would be, am I safe? Do I need to protect myself right now? Am I safe? Right. So that's the first question. That's always running. The second question is, do I belong? Do I fit in? Am I a part of a we? And so that's always running. And then the third question is, am I being seen? Am I being appreciated? Am I being valued? And so these three questions, every person's brain is asking all the time. And so one of the biggest steps we can take to create that sense of connection, trust, safety, and belonging with others is recognizing that every person you're interacting with, their brains they're asking those three questions. And if that's true, which it is, then what do I need to do to show up in this moment so that my impact is such that those answers in them are going to toggle to, yes, I'm safe. Yes, I belong. Yes, I'm being seen. And the more that we can do that with others, the more trusted relationships that we are going to create around ourselves. It's really, there's so much to this. And I love this conversation so much. And at the very least, I'll just end with this. To get to the heart of creating trusted relationships, it's in our listening. And there's many different ways we can listen. And if we really want to create trust in a moment, we have to choose to listen to connect.
That's good.
Not listen to confirm, not listen to judge, not listen to defend, not even listen to understand. But if we can choose to listen to connect with the other person, and that's a choice, and we choose it, that changes the dynamic really, truly, instantaneously. And it's really powerful.
Well, that's a great. I think you brought up a great spot to talk about your book, because you actually have a book coming out by the time that we release this recording, this podcast, YouTube will already have been out.
Yeah,
So where can people find you? Nice. Where can people find you? Talk to about where can people connect with you? I'm sure there's a lot of people going, okay, I want more. We don't have time to go through every single thing that we could possibly go through. So give us a spot where people can find you.
Yeah, thank you. So you can find me at my website, which is alwaysonpurpose.com. And yeah, I am so excited about this book. This has been, a handful of years in the making, and it will be released on May 24th, which is just so exciting. My book is called Living on Purpose, and the subtitle is 5 Deliberate Choices to Realize Fulfillment and Joy. And so you can find that on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's going to be in bookstores the moment it's released on May 24th. But for me, Always on Purpose, that's, all the information about what I do, the book's on there, all the fun stuff that's on Always on Purpose. But on social, I'm on LinkedIn. And so my handle is Amy Elisa Wong, my middle name being Eliza.
That's fantastic. And we'll put these also the show notes and the YouTube notes as well. Amy, this has been absolutely great. Love it. It's Living on Purpose. Check it out. Amy Elisa Wong on LinkedIn. We'll put that inside there. And then alwaysonpurpose.com. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing about this. I think that you've given people a lot to think about, a lot to ponder. They can go back and watch it or replay some of it to dive into it. And of course, you have a whole bunch written about this and a lot thought about it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. It was a pleasure.
And to all of our listeners, our viewers, thank you. Thank you for making this a show. Without you, we would not have a show. So thank you for allowing us to enter into your tablets, into your cars, into your day. Please take a moment, like, subscribe, share, help us, help others with these great, important ways to advance. So until next time, this has been Mike Acker with Amy Wong.
Thanks for listening to Advance with Mike Acker, a podcast designed to provide an edge for leaders through improving practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Mike is a best-selling author and business owner who has helped many leaders increase their skills and their confidence, propelling them to new heights in their personal and professional endeavors. Join an incredible group of professionals taking the steps to become better leaders at connect.stepstoadvance.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.